my dad works for Vought.
Vought International. Today's heroes. Tomorrow's future.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Turns out that The Boys Season 4 is going to be doing a version of Spider-Man. There is a version of Spider-Man inside the universe of The Boys of the comics. I'll explain who that is. His name is Web Weaver. You have to picture like a version of Bully Maguire, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man going full Venom. Just like the worst person you could possibly imagine that has powers just like Spider-Man. I can already picture all the jokes that they'll make about his organic webbing and which holes that it actually comes out of.
So you make your own web fluid in your body?
Does it come out of anywhere else?
Only the wrists.
It's so cool, man. I want to see the holes.
If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We'll get more teasers for The Boys Season 4 while they're doing The Boys Gen V episodes, and I will do some episode videos for that when it does release later this year. The weird thing about the Boys Universe version of Spider-Man is that he's only featured briefly on the cover of the Boys Dear Becky issues. It was the very final issue of the original Boys comic book by Garth Ennis. It's meant to tell the story of what happens to Huey and Starlight 12 years after the events of the main story with Butcher and the Boys versus Homelander, the Seven, and Vought. No spoilers about how that story ends because it sounds like they're going to be blowing past that pretty quickly or stretching it out big time over the next couple seasons of the Boys TV series. The ending of the TV series won't be exactly like the ending of the comic book, though, so if you have read the ending of the comic book, it will be a little bit different. The plot of that focuses on Huey finding Butcher's diary in which he wrote about his wife Becky, played by Chantel Van Santen on the TV show, and during his writings, Butcher makes it clear that Becky was essentially his conscience that always kept him in check from going too far, and that's why when you see him during the series, he's always going so hard all the time, always crossing the line, especially after her death. She's not around anymore to keep him in check morally. Then the really messed up thing that Huey winds up learning as he continues to read Butcher's diary is that he writes about wanting to kill the fictional Becky that's been living in his head after his death. He hallucinates Becky and metaphorically wants to kill his conscience, so to speak, so that he could defeat Homelander. Because he felt like that was the only way he could beat him, because Homelander was so powerful and so terrible, he could only defeat him by having no limits. Web Weaver, this boy's version of Spider-Man, is featured on the cover of one of these Dear Becky issues, and it's meant to be an homage to the classic Marvel Amazing Spider-Man issue number 316, where Venom is taking out Spider-Man, except in this case it's Huey with his Compound V powers taking out Web Weaver. And the other difference with Huey in the comics is that he gets Compound V powers that are permanent, and in the TV show he just had the temporary Compound V powers. Zoom in and enhance, notice that his Spider-Man costume on the cover here looks about as Spider-Man-like as you can get without getting sued by Marvel. Remember, this was published a long time ago too, but there's another image of him that looks way more Spider-Man-like here. The funny thing, though, is that Web Weaver is only mentioned briefly in the actual Boys story. He's a relatively minor character that you don't really see that much of. There's a point earlier in the Boys' main storyline where Butcher goes to the Legend to find a Compound V superhero that's big enough that will convince Mallory to fund the Boys team. So this is happening way before the events of the series. And the Legend character, who's meant to be a parody of Stan Lee, who just knows everything, has information on all these different superheroes. He also kind of looks like J. Jonah Jameson in this scene. The way he talks about Web Weaver suggests that Butcher take down Web Weaver, their Spider-Man, who they also call the Thwipster.
I want Spider-Man!
And that's about all you hear or see of their version of Spider-Man. You can see Garth Ennis trying not to get sued by Marvel, but clearly making a bunch of Spider-Man parodies and jokes. All the Boys characters are meant to be parodies of Marvel and DC comic book characters. The upcoming Gen V TV show is meant to be a parody of X-Men with the School for Gifted Children and Compound V powers. Clancy Brown's character is meant to be a parody of Professor X. But the whole idea is that the university is just a front for Vought to find more Compound V superheroes that they can use to make more money off of. Even though Godolphin University isn't from the comics, they're doing a bit of an X-Men parody here. There is an X-Men parody in the comic book version of the Boys. They're called the G-Men team, led by an evil version of Professor X, basically. Clancy Brown's Professor X type of character does have Compound V superpowers. They didn't say exactly what they are, but if he's meant to be a Professor X parody, then they might be mental abilities. But basically the idea with the spin-off here is they have this university called Godolphin University, God-U, which is meant to be a Vought-controlled school that they use to pick through all the Compound V babies to find one that they can actually use to make more money off of. They're billing the show as a little bit like X-Men, like Xavier's school for gifted youngsters in the Boys universe. So X-Men in the Boys universe mixed with the Hunger Games, as they're all fighting for a chance to join the Seven. And the whole Hunger Games thing is the idea that they're basically killing each other off. Last person standing gets a chance to join the Seven. The whole idea in the boys' universe is that with very few exceptions across history, parents will submit their children for Compound V testing because at least at the present day, Compound V only really worked on children. When adults would take it, it would just wind up making them explode. Recently, they changed that with the temporary Compound V. Like now you see adults being able to take it, and it's a slightly different form of the Compound V. But all the older children and all the adults who would have taken it, with the exception of Ryan and Homelander, were basically dosed with Compound V when they were children as part of experiments, just to become part of Vought's testing to see if they could make a better version of the formula, or if they could make a superhero that they could make a ton of money off of. That was the real reason, like, hey, you submit your child, you have a chance to earn a lot of money off of them, they could become really rich as a superhero, but really they just wanted them as cannon fodder for their testing. If they wound up developing really cool or really marketable, useful superpowers, that was just a bonus side effect. The reason why Homelander was an exception is because he was actually artificially created in a lab. They took genetic material from Soldier Boy and tried to refine his DNA to make an even more powerful superhero, and that became Homelander. So the idea is that across history, you have all these different people secretly submitting their children for testing to get Compound V when they're babies. The whole idea with Tech Knight is he's being played by Derek Wilson here. You see him in the trailer briefly. He has like a short scene where he talks about the rush, quote unquote. I was hoping that Jeffrey Dean Morgan would wind up being their Tech Knight, but he's actually playing a totally different character during season 4. Within the world of the comics, he's meant to be a parody of both Marvel's Iron Man and DC's Batman, but the showrunner said for the purposes of the show versus the comics, they lean more in a Batman direction on the TV show. Something about them feeling like Batman was more ripe for parody than Iron Man's character, even though they're both pretty ripe for parody. The whole idea with Batman and Iron Man is that they're similar in that they're both billionaires that use their technology to make themselves superheroes, a bunch of gadgets, a bunch of armor, instead of having natural Compound V abilities like other superheroes in the boys' universe, like Homelander. He's a huge character in the comics, but he's super funny in a very, very disturbing, messed up way. Tech Knight, as in technology like Iron Man, Tech Knight has no natural powers. All of his abilities come from the gear that he invents, just like Iron Man. In Knight, as in The Dark Knight, and in the past, he had a sidekick named Laddie, who was a version of Robin, who also left him when he got older to become a version of Nightwing that they call Swingwing on the series. Just like Iron Man and Batman, he's super rich and has his own Batcave full of weapons and machines that he uses. They have released a couple in-universe sort of parody teaser trailer videos for actual Season 4 stuff that they'll be covering when the season begins. This is one of those videos.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ashley Barrett, coming to you with an important update on behalf of our greatest hero and our most loving father. In the coming months, Homelander will stand trial for saving his son from a vicious Starlight-loving thug, an act of heroism, now somehow being branded a murder. Make no mistake, Vought and its shareholders stand fully behind Homelander, and this will in no way impact his status as Captain of the Seven. We have complete faith in the American legal system to get things right, like it always does. For now, keep him and Ryan in your thoughts and in your prayers, and be sure to post with #HomeFree so he can see your support.
But this is obviously them just joking about what happened at the end of Season 3 with Homelander killing that dude that threw the can at Ryan. The big surprise here is that they're actually going to take what happened at the end of Season 3 and they're going to hold Homelander trial either at some point at the very beginning of the season or between Season 3 and Season 4. I'm not expecting them to get too bogged down in this whole trial for Homelander at the beginning of Season 4. Like, they'll get into the main part of the plot pretty quickly, probably. Because there's no way that Homelander would ever let himself be arrested and be put in prison. It'd be like trying to arrest Superman. They had a lot of references to this during the Man of Steel movie and Batman v Superman with him addressing the council here. Like, imagine a version of this with Homelander. Homelander would just be pretending, like there's no way that he would bend over backwards to try and make all these regular people feel better about themselves. There'd be like a brief hot second where they try to put him in cuffs, and then he'd say, you know what? I'm done with this. Screw this.
Let's put our cards on the table here, General.
Laser everybody in sight. They even had a teaser for that in previous seasons where he almost lost it on an entire crowd of people because he got so pissed off at them. The other part of the joke here is that Ashley is doing her very best Stan Edgar trying to spin the news towards the benefit of Vought in general and Homelander, bravely trying to protect his son Ryan against that vicious Starlight supporter. all the thoughts and prayers, jokes, and then just the idea that they're not going to change anything in their day-to-day because of what happened with Homelander. It's a bit of an evolution of what happened during the events of Season 3, where Homelander just completely lost it on live broadcast news, but it wound up making him way more appealing to his base and way less appealing to just a general audience. They've had this runner during the Boys seasons about the approval ratings that each of the different superheroes have. Like, the higher the approval ratings that they have amongst the public, the more money they earn from endorsements, from the products that they try to sell, basically. Which is the way that Homelander sort of measured how much people loved him, and that's what he wanted. Like, he wanted people to love him, so he's always obsessed with his quote-unquote poll numbers in the public, and that's what happened after his big rant during Season 3.
What did you just say to me?
21 points.
That spun into an evolution of the whole idea that he can do anything that he wants, but now he actually kind of starts to believe it. Previously, the idea is that he was just kind of saying that to himself. I don't think that he actually believed it. He was slowly going crazier and crazier, but now he's into like full-blown crazy territory, trying to drink his own Kool-Aid. They also made it seem like he had this weird Moon Knight thing going on, where he had this completely alternate persona that he developed as a child to help him survive, just because of what it was like growing up inside that special room, quote-unquote, that they kept him in. Remember when we got put in the bad room? I got us through that. They'll probably release a couple of teasers for The Boys Season 4 during the Gen V episodes. Of course, I'll do videos for it, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that. My Ahsoka Episode 5 video will post after they release it. Click here for that. I'll update the link as soon as I post that. And click here for my new Aquaman 2 trailer video and Easter eggs. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.